Make a habit of empathy, to recognize ourselves in each other.
Yeah.
My name's Aftab Omer. I live in Sonoma County, and I'm with Meridian University. I think of empathy as an act of imagination, and speak about the empathic imagination. There are numerous modes of imagination, and the empathic imagination is key in terms of us being able to experience the other. There is, in empathy, we are feeling with someone, but it's not just that. That would be just sympathy. And empathy takes more than sympathy, than feeling with. Empathy takes being able to imagine more fully the experience the other is having. That is, so feeling with is a part of empathy, not all of it. There's a further distinction that's important to make is between empathy and compassion. Compassion is a capacity. It travels with us. It's something that has emerged in our consciousness as a capacity of consciousness. If we have that capacity, we're much more likely to be empathic with a wide range of people in a wide range of situations, because it is us. Compassion is us. Empathy can come and go depending on the situation and who is somebody we can relate to, have affinity with, or not. Well, I remember as a graduate student thinking that empathy was, I began to think of empathy as almost a research method, not to trivialize it or turn it into something cold and distant. But in doing research which actually had to do with people's experience, not in a living kind of way, in researching lived experience, as distinct from doing surveys and statistical analysis of survey data. Research that is research of lived experience. Empathy, in a way, is a research method. The more empathic someone is, the more they're able to actually experience what their inquiry is about. So that's something I think that prior to that I thought of empathy as a good quality, a virtuous quality that some people had and that it went with conscience. But understanding empathy's role in inquiry, interpersonal inquiry, social inquiry, that was another step. And I think after that came an understanding of capacities and being able to distinguish between empathy as an act of imagination on the one hand, and compassion as a capacity on the other hand. I'm aware of having noticed when I was, how I was affected, say, by a homeless person on the street. And I began to notice differences between when I was open enough to be affected and when not. And then there's different qualities in how we're affected by the suffering of others. And of course, empathy isn't just about feeling the suffering in others' experience, but also more fully their experience. Suffering is one dimension, and sometimes in speaking about empathy and compassion, we begin to focus just on the suffering dimension. And of course that's critical, because when we're able to empathize in relationship to the suffering of others, then we're much more responsive and responsible about how we're going to impact them. No. Well, let me just add this, that last night at the conference we were talking about sociopathy and not someone whose conscience cannot be awakened, at least not in a simple way. And of course, the critical importance of empathy has to do with its relationship to conscience. You know, no empathy, in effect, means no conscience, at least in that situation. No conscience means not being able to take responsibility for the impact of one's actions, or just even the impact of one's presence in a situation.
I've seen something about the relationship of empathy and responsibility, and I'm quite not understanding it personally, and so you're kind of touching on it, and it's a little bit of a struggle for me to grasp the relationship of empathy to responsibility. Is there more you could say about that? Because you seem to have some insights into that.
Well, what is central, so conscience, like compassion, is a capacity. And the emergence of conscience as a capacity is linked to the experience of shame. You know, no other species on this earth, none of the mammals, not even the other primates, come close to the human sensitivity that we refer to as shame. And so there are types of wounding that can happen to people where our sensitivity to shame is buried. And when that happens, conscience gets buried too. Not that shame equals conscience, but that it's the experience of shame that over time, when brought into consciousness, becomes conscience. That is to say, our ability to be aware of how we're impacting people, and also our ability to, and also our ability to be responsive to the experience of others, the impact we're having on others.
So would it be like this in terms of when you're empathizing with someone and you do something that kind of hurts them, and then they kind of explain it how they were hurt, and you realize that your actions caused that hurt, intentionally or unintentionally, and when you realize the hurt you caused someone, that's like saying, oh, this action caused that pain, and then you have a sense of pain, shame with that realization.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, that's a good description. Humans have a set of sensitivities. Shame is one of them. Grief, fear, anger, these are sensitivities. Our ability to be empathic means that these sensitivities are accessible to us. If these sensitivities get numbed out, we cannot be empathic, because these are the sensitivities that are part of our imagining whether the other is in a place of grief or anger or shame, etc. So these sensitivities are you might say, a prerequisite for empathy. And empathy is a prerequisite for sustained responsiveness and responsibility in human affairs.